Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on YYC Business. Joining me today is Alicia Planincic, who is an economist with the Business Council of Alberta. Thanks for joining us today, Alicia.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about jobs and jobs data that came out fairly recently by Statistics Canada. We'll chat first of all about the Alberta scene and then dive down into Calgary. First for Alberta, the unemployment rate in June went up from 8.7% the previous month to 9.3% in June. Tell me what's happening there from what you can see.
Yeah, so the indicators actually that I like to focus on are actually just the total number of folks who are employed, the amount of employment, as well as the employment rate, which is the percent of folks who are employed who have a job. And the reason for that is the weird thing with the unemployment rate is sometimes folks will basically stop looking for work because they think that there isn't a job out there, when really that person, we want to know that that person doesn't have a job, right? When we're thinking about COVID and economic recovery. So when we look at just the total job data, the number of jobs, it was kind of a mixed bag for Alberta in the June data. I think a lot of us economists, we woke up really excited to see some big numbers, and we're a bit disappointed. So there are kind of two different forces that are at play in Alberta that I think are netting each other out.
So, when I looked at, sorry, I had a little malfunction there.
Okay.
So when you look at the jobs numbers, say for Alberta, there was, Stats Can said there was a loss of 200 jobs for the month over month, but year over year, we're up 171,400. What do you think is happening there from the purely job creation point of view?
Yeah, so a couple hundred, I'm going to call that basically flat, right? In a province with a couple million people. So basically what was happening is two big things. So one is restrictions were eased or began to be easing in June, right? And so as that happened, we were expecting, places like restaurants to start to reach out to the folks again and start to hire, right, and bring back people. And so the good news is for Alberta that we saw that. We saw a huge increase in the industry that we call food and accommodations, which is basically restaurants, coffee shops, hotels, right? So that employment actually increased a lot. So as of May data, employment is down 38% versus pre-pandemic levels. As of June data, it was down just 17%, right? So that's an enormous improvement. So that much is good, right? We have about 37,000 more folks that are employed in that industry, but, right, mixed bag. So the other side of the story is we saw roughly an equivalent number of folks lose their job in construction as well as transportation and warehousing. So that's where we kind of netted out about flat.
So when we dive into Calgary, right, and I'll just throw some of the Stats Canada numbers out, again, unemployment rate, 8.7% up to 9.2%, a loss of 2,300 jobs month over month, but a gain of 85,500 year over year. So what's happening in the employment market in Calgary these days?
Yeah, so when I flip it to look at that employment rate, so the percentage of folks that are employed in Calgary, the bad news is Calgary is still faring worse than everybody else, right? Undoubtedly, it's doing worse. But the good news is it is starting to be a little bit better, right? So as a percentage of the population, we've got more folks who are back to work, which is a good sign. The one issue with that data is it's very, it's lagged, right? So what they do is they look at a 3-month rolling average. So they're looking at a longer time period, basically to get more people in that sample. So we're only just starting to see the impact of Calgary restaurants being open again, say, right? So I think waiting a couple more months, we're going to start to better understand Calgary relative to other regions in Alberta. Is it really faring worse, or is it starting to kind of catch up?
What's your crystal ball look at the last I guess the last quarter, 2 quarters of the year, as we move forward, with fully vaccinated province, so to speak, getting up there in numbers, fully open right now. Does it look bright for the future for employment in the province?
Yeah, so two sides of that. I think I am very optimistic as far as the food and accommodations industries, right? The industries that are, as of July, almost fully reopened. I'm very optimistic that once we see the July data, we're going to see even further improvement. Just today as well, I'm sure you saw that Prime Minister Trudeau announced that the border is now open to Americans. That's going to help us out as well, right? So I think I'm very optimistic for those hard hit industries. I think we're going to continue to see more and more movement back to kind of a more normal level of employment. What worries me is more the other industries that were not necessarily directly impacted by COVID, but haven't seen the same amount of growth as in other provinces. And so I think just one thing that we're seeing as a result of that is we're seeing higher long-term unemployment. So Alberta, one concerning metric is we've got 2.5% of our labor force has been out of work for over a year, which is an enormous number. It's 60% higher than the national average. So that's really a big factor to watch moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, why we're going to have to look to other industries for growth.
Okay, then a lot of it has to do with confidence, right? I think, there seems to be a better vibe out there. You walk around Calgary these days and, there's more people out, there's more people doing things. Do you think that level of confidence, whether it's from a consumer point of view or a business point of view, it has been increasing?
Yeah, so I think with consumers, it was just really a matter of being able to do the things. And I think you're definitely seeing this kind of like FOMO economy of like wanting to get out and do all the things that you couldn't do. So I'm very optimistic on that. As well, though, we have done some surveys with our business leaders at the Business Council of Alberta, and they too are showing increased optimism. So they've got plans. More of our businesses are expecting to hire more folks this next 6 months than the number who are expecting to decrease their employment. So I think that's another encouraging sign too for Alberta.
Okay, super. Thanks for joining us today, Alicia.
Thanks so much.
All right, super. That was Alicia Planincic, who is economist with the Business Council of Alberta. This has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on YYC Business. Thanks for joining us today.